French society called him indecent. Critics accused him of turning art into voyeurism. And yet today, historians study entire eras through his paintings. Because while other artists chased heroes, revolutions, and grand historical scenes, Louis-Léopold Boilly painted something far more dangerous. Ordinary people behaving like real human beings. Flirting, gossiping, cheating, laughing, spying on each other, living messy private lives behind closed doors. And the strangest part? 200 years later, his paintings still feel uncomfortably modern. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us continue creating deep stories about the world of art and the artist's history almost forgot. Louis-Léopold Boilly was born in 1761 in northern France, in the small town of La Bassée, into the family of a woodcarver. This wasn't an aristocratic environment where art was treated like something elevated or intellectual. Art was simply part of everyday life and craftsmanship. And maybe that's exactly why Boilly's path into painting stayed grounded from the very beginning. No elite academies, no powerful patrons at the start, no myth of the tortured genius, just skill, observation, and work. As a teenager, he became interested in drawing and trained with provincial artists first in Douai and later in Arras, where he learned the technique of trompe-l'œil, literally, deceive the eye. The art of creating such convincing realism that objects appear almost physically present. This technique would later become one of his signatures. His education followed the traditional apprentice system, assisting masters, working inside workshops, learning through practice instead of theory. It wasn't the path of a privileged student. It was the path of someone who had to earn a living early. By the late 1780s, Boilly moved to Paris, the city where art was both self-expression and survival. To establish himself, he painted portraits and accepted private commissions. One of his earliest important patrons was the collector Esprit Calvé, who commissioned a series of works that brought Boilly recognition inside artistic circles. But Boilly happened to live during one of the most unstable periods in French history. He witnessed the French Revolution, the Reign of Terror, Napoleon's rise, Napoleon's fall, and the restoration of the monarchy. Yet, unlike many artists of his time, he didn't make dramatic historical events the center of his work. What interested him much more was ordinary life. Parisian streets, crowded interiors, random social encounters, intimate moments people usually tried to hide. His paintings feel almost like stolen moments. Someone laughs, someone flirts, someone steals. Someone secretly watches another person. Someone simply exists. Instead of official history, Boilly documented everyday reality. And that's what made him unique. But not everyone appreciated that honesty. Many contemporaries accused him of indecency. His paintings featuring kisses, exposed legs, flirtation, and intimate situations irritated more conservative audiences. One of the loudest critics was François-André Vincent and certain revolutionary circles who considered Boilly's work too frivolous and morally questionable for such serious political times. At one point, the criticism became serious enough that Boilly had to publicly defend himself. To avoid real consequences, he displayed patriotic paintings and revolutionary-themed works as proof that he supported the spirit of the era. It was basically a compromise, a way of protecting himself politically. But deep down, heroic propaganda never truly interested him. He was always drawn back to living details and human behavior. Technically, Boilly was an absolute virtuoso. His paintings are astonishingly precise. Fabrics, reflections, furniture, textures, tiny objects. Everything is painted with such care that some works almost resemble early photography. His trompe-l'œil paintings are especially impressive because they create the illusion that objects physically extend beyond the canvas. Sometimes he even painted fake notes, cards, or papers pinned onto the composition so realistically that viewers wanted to touch them. He also loved playing with perception itself. A painting might look like an engraving at first glance, or an engraving might suddenly appear painterly. He constantly manipulated the viewer's eye. His early works echo the sentimental style of Jean-Baptiste Greuze and Jean-Honoré Fragonard, with their emotional softness and moral undertones. But over time, Boilly developed his own visual language that combined the precision of 17th-century Dutch masters, the liveliness of French genre painting, and a subtle, ironic humor. His paintings almost function like a giant visual diary of French society, and he was unbelievably productive. During his lifetime, Boilly created around 4,500 portraits, although only part of them survive today. These portraits were never just images of faces, they were psychological studies. He captured mood, class, personality, and emotional state with remarkable precision. Sometimes, he arranged portraits into complicated group compositions where every figure still felt individual. In that sense, he shared something with both Dutch and English portrait traditions. Surprisingly, less is known about his personal life than about his paintings, but the surviving facts reveal someone very grounded and practical. Boilly married twice. His first wife, Marie-Madeleine Delaine, died relatively young in 1795 during the difficult years following the Revolution. Later, he married again, this time to Adelaide Françoise Leduc, and this second marriage proved much more stable and long-lasting. Together, they had 6 sons. And this wasn't simply a large, symbolic family. Several of the children continued the artistic tradition themselves. Julien Léopold and Edouard became painters, while Alphonse worked in engraving. In a way, Boilly created a small artistic dynasty where craftsmanship passed from one generation to another. Looking at his constant commissions, steady exhibition activity, and enormous output, it's obvious he worked relentlessly to support his family. And maybe that also explains his incredible productivity. Thousands of portraits were not only artistic passion, they were financial necessity. Interestingly, his paintings often reveal a deep sensitivity toward domestic life. Family interiors, private moments, household details, emotional closeness between people. Whether autobiographical or not, it's clear he understood this world from inside. Of course, his personal life wasn't completely peaceful. The early death of his first wife, political instability, constant criticism, all of that formed part of his reality. But unlike many artists who collapsed into drama or self-destruction, Boilly adapted. He continued working, continued observing, continued surviving. That's why he doesn't fit the familiar image of the suffering genius. Instead, he feels like someone who successfully embedded himself inside his era while quietly documenting it from within. He lived more than 80 years and died in Paris in 1845. A few years before his death, he received the Legion of Honor and became a member of the Institut de France, recognition he had spent decades earning. Yet, despite his popularity during his lifetime, Boilly later faded into the shadow of louder and more dramatic names. Maybe because he never painted grand, heroic masterpieces. Maybe because he seemed too grounded, too attentive to small details, too focused on ordinary life. But ironically, that's exactly what makes him feel valuable today. His paintings function almost like a time machine. Through them, we can see how people dressed, how their homes looked, how they flirted, socialized, argued, entertained themselves, and behaved when nobody imagined future generations would be watching. Some historians even argue that Boilly wasn't just an artist. He was also an extremely smart businessman. He clearly understood what audiences wanted and knew how to adapt to public taste. That may explain why his works constantly balance between fine art and entertainment. But that balance doesn't make them less important. If anything, it makes them more honest. Because Louis-Léopold Boilly never tried to impress people with giant historical myths. Instead, he captured something much harder to preserve: human life in all its simplicity, awkwardness, humor, weakness, and beauty. He doesn't moralize. He doesn't judge. He simply watches. And maybe that's exactly why his paintings still feel alive today. Because somewhere inside them, it's very easy to recognize ourselves. And before you go, visit alibrio.co. Discover contemporary artists, original handmade works, and creative voices from around the world. Support independent creators in their journey, explore new art, and become part of a growing creative community. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.